poor people take their phones out, they answer the phone.
Well, we know that's a little window now, you know, what I mean? Like you got a 30-second window. Yeah.
I don't think I'll be there by 6. You just go in, text me what seat you got, and say, you see, I'll find you gonna. Okay, but yeah, but you got the.
Another person goes to the ball game.
Everyone's going to the ball game.
Yeah,
Not me.
not you, too many people.
I wasn't invited.
Jerry, 6 bucks.
6 bucks.
Head over.
Well,
I'm gonna be heading
At
over.
my age,
while he's pursuing this, why don't we, you wanna,
Yep, let me do
Jerry,
that.
do you wanna get started?
Yep.
We can at least get started and approve the minutes. So we'll get this started. Call the meeting to order, and the first order of business is the approval of the January 4th, 2017 meeting minutes. Are there any changes or comments to the minutes? None, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So
Moved by Mr. Fuchek, seconded by Mr. Dudkin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Let's see. I am pleased to announce, although he's not here, that John Stanley, who is the chairman of the board of Lehigh Valley Hospital and the retired general counsel of Air Products, has been appointed to our board. And also David Mickenberg, who is the CEO of the Art Museum. So we now have a full board. Both of them, unfortunately, are not here.
Notice of the meeting?
They did. David must be tied up. I know that John was asked to be excused because he has a coincidental Lehigh Valley Hospital board meeting at the same time as this. But he's going to try to change the scheduling for future board meetings. So, at any rate, we're very pleased to have them. They were appointed by Senator Brown, and I'm sure they will be able to help with our efforts. The next item of business is we've been asked to entertain, not for approval or anything, but just for presentation, by the owners of the Holiday Inn, a presentation of what they intend to do in terms of the NIZ, using NIZ financing, which they will be coming forth with in the future, to upgrade. So Mike Stout, you want to just put your, present what you have for us, please?
Thank you. As Chairman Traub was saying, we're a little out of order of the process, but I think you'll see near the end of the presentation why that is happening. So the current owners of the Holiday Inn at 9th and Hamilton have owned the property for several years, well before the NIZ was enacted by law. They've invested in Allentown through some very difficult times. The NIZ has done good things for the hotel. Since the NIZ has been created and active, their revenue has doubled. So that's a good thing. But it started at a very low point, and there's still plenty room to grow. One of the things you'll see through this presentation is that we expect the revenue to double again after upgrading the hotel. So they are at a point where their contract with Holiday Inn is up, and they've been approved for 2 or 3 different new flags, more modern concepts. If you want to think about something and wrap your head around something, you can think of a DoubleTree by Hilton, or Courtyard by Marriott. Those would be the types of brands that we're talking about, flags that we're talking about. And the requirements that we've gotten back from those flags were used by W2A and Alvin H. Blitz Incorporated to come up with some of the concepts and the cost estimates. So they've done a lot of work, and we're at a point where we need some feedback in order to proceed forward. As just a little bit of a background, the Holiday Inn is a 9-story building at 9th and Hamilton. It's a large facility. It's 176,000 square feet. It was constructed in 1982 as a Hilton. Many of us old-timers know that. It was a Crown Plaza for a while, then a Holiday Inn, and now, of course, we'll be moving to one of the new flags. There's
Mr.
Doctor.
Doctor
Doctor.
McGuire. Dr. McGuire.
Depends whether you're a higher official or just yourself.
Well, I'm just myself and I can't read paper, so you don't have to give me one.
Is this the ordinance that was presented earlier?
Correct.
Dr. McGuire? Okay, yeah, I got a copy of that. All right. This is thank you for coming all. We're gonna do a quick introduction so everybody knows who they are. And let me just say that this is an ad hoc committee or council through the Community Economic Development Committee of the city, city council. So, why don't we do a quick introduction so we know who everybody is. I'm Julio Guridi, I'm city council.
Mike Hammond, City Clerk.
Dave McGuire, City Council and Chair of the Community and Economic Development Committee.
CC Joe, resident downtown.
Alan Jennings, Community Action Committee of Nevada.
Darrell Hendricks, Vice President, Allentown City Council.
Ray O'Connell, President of Allentown City Council.
Leonard Leitner, Deputy Operations Manager for Community Economic Development.
Tom Broadhead, Community Housing Coordinator, City of Allentown.
Scott Holbert, Assistant Solicitor for the City of Allentown.
And we have Emily Papillo with the morning call. So watch what you say.
Two people
Can we
down.
get their names down?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see the.
Yes, sir.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And can you say, you wanna say your name?
My name's Courtney Newcomer. I'm a resident of Allentown.
Okay.
Ben Grossman, resident of Allentown.
Oh, okay. Great, thank you for coming. All right, so basically what's transpired up to now is, I think I can attribute to CC some of these issues in regards to the possibly a zoning, inclusionary zoning or inclusionary housing, and it's due primarily to the developments that's been going on in the city, specifically more into the NIZ area and some of the other developments throughout the city. And looking at, I think it stems from we gentrifying the city or not, and what can we do to make the city and some of the housing stock in the city better than what they are now. I think that's my explanation to it. I think the latter part of it is probably the most important one. How can we make the housing stock better now? And do we need to legislate? If we do need to legislate something, what is it? How is it going to happen? And what it is? You probably got some information that were in the internet or probably in the website. Or Michael, did you send anybody information at all? Or?
I sent them the link to the website. So there was a copy of the ordinance, a copy of the solicitor's opinion, the Upside Allentown report, census data report. There was just a bunch of stuff.
So I was able to get that information. Is anybody missing any of what we talked about so far? If not, I'm assuming that everybody has the information. There was an ordinance that it's a very rough draft according to Cece that came from, Cece gave it to me initially, and I think she gave it to Michael, and Michael put it in the website. Is that how it happened?
Yep.
Okay. But then there was also information from the solicitor. The solicitor, we requested an LSR from the solicitor, and the solicitor's opinions are here in regards to what they are. So we have 4 different points, and I'm going to ask our Solicitor Scott, if you can, would you be ready to discuss your opinion of this?
Sure.
Will you please?
So, the LSR was sent, there's basically 4 issues that were brought up. One was basically what needs to be done to, was a broad, just what needs to be done to amend the zoning ordinance. That's pretty standard, it's set through our regulations, so it doesn't have to take up too much of our discussion here. Is inclusionary zoning legal within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? What effect would any inclusionary zoning amendment have on current projects that are going on? And could an overlay district be created for the neighborhood improvement zone? So points 1 and 3, I can address more generally. So the process for amending the zoning ordinances, it has to go through the planning commissions first. There has to be a public hearing before it can be passed. There has to be about at least 30 days in between when it's given to both the city's planning commission as well as the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission pursuant to the municipality's planning code. So there's going to be some time in there for them to review, comment, and if comments are taken and there's substantial changes, the process starts over. So there has to be a public hearing. I should say, when the changes come from the public hearing, the process would start over. Any zoning amendment, regardless of the type, doesn't have effect on existing structures, existing buildings, existing uses, or anything that's been planned. And by planned, there's a specific definition. People submit permits, they're starting the work, whether it's, they've started to do something and there's something formal given to the city, it's not going to be affected by the ordinance as well. So all the development we see going on right now, it's not going to affect that. It would only affect any future development. So as to the issue of inclusionary zoning, the idea of using affordable housing, it's not per se granted within the zoning ordinance, or not the zoning ordinance, excuse me, the laws regarding zoning, the model penal code, not the model penal code. They have too many of the abbreviations the same. The municipality's planning code, it's not particularly given, but there's broad authority for zoning. It's something you can look at, and it's been done throughout municipalities, so it's not too much of a legal issue. It's more the issue is going to come with implementation and actually writing and enforcing the ordinance. So that's the biggest issue, is how would you go about doing that? Zoning is a land use, it's a property right, so it's something that's valued under our Constitution. So the government has to have some sort of objective that they're achieving, and how they're getting there, i.e. the ordinance. There has to be some real thought put into it and how you do it. So things like, specifically in this case, what size of the projects we're going to be including, what percentage of the projects you would look to have affordable units, increases, the incentives you grant for the affordable project, i.e. increasing, number of units allowed on the specific property. All those things need to be taken into account within Allentown and their actual facts about Allentown and how development is going. So I think that's where we are now.
Thank you, Scott. Before we proceed, I want you to think, do we need anybody else on the table to follow up on what we want to do with regards to providing affordable housing for citizens or residents of the city? Is there anybody that is missing right now that you think we can move on without having this person on the table?
I think we need to understand and hear from developers.
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna affect their business, and we need their view. Whether we listen to it or not, I think we need their perspective.
Well, I had a meeting, it just happened that I had a meeting with J.B. Riley yesterday, okay? He's obviously the biggest developer of the city right now. And he's willing to meet with some of us as a task force type of thing, with about 5 or 6 people, okay? And he will be, but it's interesting in improving lower income housing stock in the city. He's been working obviously in middle income housing and I think he's interested in doing something. He's very interested in, has some good incentive for what we wanna do. He prefers to do it with certain people and, you know, in a private situation as we can, look into, you know, it's not, things are not written in stone. He doesn't want to put himself out there in the public, obviously, where people will probably, you know, make a bigger issue than, well, not bigger issue, I should say. I think he's feel more comfortable if we have a stack, I mean, a task force of this group to meet with him.
Do you know someone else that could be a developer?
What's that, Mike?
I'm sorry,
Oh,
what did you
I
say?
asked Alan if he knows a developer that might be interested in being on the committee.
Well, Tom, yeah, City Line.
City Line?
Tom Williams.
Tom Williams? Okay, Tom Williams. So you're talking about like Tom Williams, obviously J.B. Riley, he's
Yeah.
interested in.
I think
doing
JP
something.
probably doesn't want to get caught up in the sunshine requirements of these meetings.
I'm assuming the same thing.
But we would be foolish to not hear his perspective.
I agree with you.
Why wouldn't you?
Especially when he's interested in supporting, you know, basically what we're looking at. Not necessarily in the same way, obviously.
Why wouldn't he sit at the table with us?
He will sit at the table with
So
some
you
people.
said a separate task force.
Yeah, he, from this group, develop a task force that he would be more comfortable sitting and talking. And I think it has to do a lot with confidentiality.
He would pick the people he's comfortable with,
No,
or you would?
we would pick the people that we wanna say.
Go on record publicly.
Yeah. And we would pick the people from this meeting. I obviously mentioned, people like Cece, I mentioned Alan Jennings, I knew who was gonna come. I mentioned somebody from council in addition to me, and he was okay with it.
He
Why
was
would,
okay.
well, look, I have a lot of respect for J.B. Riley, but why does he have to be okay with it? It's our
Well,
committee.
that's his suggestion.
It's our committee.
It's our committee, but I'm saying, you know, I think, we are saying, and I think Alan just, enforced what I was saying, or reinforced what I was saying, that we need to have certain individuals who have, you know, who are developing, you know, middle income properties
side
in the
of it.
city.
What's that?
You know, people who, we need the alternative perspectives.
I don't disagree with that.
So
You
whether it's
said
JP or it's Tom
he
Williams.
would be apprehensive about being public, or you were saying earlier about the
I think he
sunshine law?
probably wants to avoid having a public discussion about this, knowing JB.
Right now, at the beginning.
I would also think that maybe someone from the commercial lending perspective that is looking at whether projects are bankable, that could look at this might be helpful. Because you gotta finance this stuff.
Well, that's easy enough, there are plenty of them. Neil Copeland is probably the one that I would suggest.
Who is that? I'm sorry, Alan?
Who is it?
Neil Copeland used to be in charge of commercial lending for housing purposes at BB&, well, at the time, National Penn. He's now he's the regional president for People Security. But his expertise is this kind of lending.
How do you spell his last name?
K-O-P. Neil is N-E-A-L, Copeland is K-O-P-L-I-N.
So, moving forward, go right ahead, sir.
Landlords,
Landlords,
landlord associations.
we can bring him to this meeting, that invite him?
I'm putting that idea out as long as you're putting out other names, which is okay. But I'm just saying, if you're looking for a variety of interested persons, a lot of the land, housing stock is owned by landlords.
But unless they're developing more housing, they wouldn't be affected by this proposal.
Okay. What is the proposal that you're talking about?
Specifically the inclusionary zone.
are we meeting today to talk about inclusionary zoning, that's it? Or are we talking about a housing committee to improve housing stock affordable, making it more
No,
affordable?
I think this is strictly, set for the inclusionary zone.
Okay,
However, the,
Affordable housing, right.
I think what the majority of the people are in support is providing a good housing stock for lower income individuals in the city.
Right.
So my
that
understanding,
sounds to me like a lot larger than inclusionary zoning.
yeah,
If it's broader than inclusionary zoning, I would agree with David. You have Nelson Diaz or somebody who's a multi-family investment guy.
My understanding of this committee was specifically for inclusionary zoning, with the understanding that inclusionary zoning isn't the one and only solution to solving the affordable housing situation we have. It's part of the solution. That was my understanding of this.
Yeah, I think if we go beyond that, I mean, we're talking
That's a much bigger.
much broader area, and I don't know that that's something.
But isn't part of inclusionary zoning improving housing stocks in the city for lower income individuals?
It's improving the availability of affordable housing, but also creating mixed-income communities. It's not just that.
yeah, my understanding was that this was going to try, this committee was gonna try to get at, look at the issue of affordable housing and seeing inclusionary zoning as one part of getting at affordable housing. So I assumed that we needed to understand the issues relating to affordable housing in Allentown, and that we also needed somebody, if we're going the inclusionary zoning route, to, like a banker, somebody to give us details. So I thought we were I thought the committee was gonna do like both, look at affordable housing, but inclusionary zoning as a part of it.
What do you think, Susie, about that, what he just said?
Well, I mean, it would make sense that one of the first elements we look at would be inclusionary zoning, and if this committee wants to stay together after it's voted and passed in May, then that's great. This committee could stay together and then look at other aspects of affordable housing. I don't, to do an entire analysis of the affordable housing situation and then determine if inclusionary zoning is going to address that, that wasn't my understanding.
All right, so, I mean, is everybody in the same page on this, or are we in a different page? Sounds like there are two things. I mean, one of the things.
Seems to make sense. I would tell you, my opinion is that inclusionary zoning won't go anywhere near as far as we need to go on this issue. So I can guarantee you that once we deal with the inclusionary zoning issue, we're gonna wanna talk about other things, because we're gonna realize how little it's gonna do to affect the bigger problem that you addressed to them. But if, you know, I don't have any, I mean, I'm certainly happy to do whatever you all wanna do. If you start with inclusionary zoning, we can at least deal with that issue and move it or not, and then move on to the other pieces of this.
I'm on that page.
Yeah, because the way I'm looking at it is, if we do, either we do or do not do inclusionary zoning, we still have to deal with the lower income housing stocks for, you know, for individuals in the city. Either we do inclusionary zoning or not, we still have to deal with that. But the main issue with inclusionary zoning is dealing with that, isn't it?
Not just low income, moderate income.
No, low and moderate income.
Yeah. Yeah.
Low and moderate income, low and, you know, middle income type of thing.
Yeah, it's part of it.
So, it is part of it. So, are you saying, let me see if I hear you right, are you saying, let's just deal, if we wanna do inclusionary zoning, which is a process as well, or if we wanna deal with, housing stock and using inclusionary zoning as a way to do it?
Well, I think as explained, that's not gonna solve the problem of substandard housing.
Right.
But it's a way to start, and something we probably should look, especially at this time with a lot of the developing well underway. I think it's a reasonable thing to look at that now and then go from there.
There is everything.
Beyond that, it's gotta be substandard housing and dealing with it, how we deal with that issue.
You're saying, looking at it, that, what is that for you?
Inclusionary zoning.
Inclusionary zoning, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, saying that, do we need anybody else to deal with that, with the issue specifically with inclusionary zoning on the table?
A developer, that's it.
A developer, okay. And you mentioned a couple of people,
Someone else to consider would be the Jandals.
the genders, that would be,
I mean, they are going to be, certainly an inherent part of the developing going on the waterfront.
Good idea.
okay.
If I wouldn't get Zach, I'd get Mark.
Mark.
The father.
The father.
Get the dad.
Guy who writes the checks.
Although David is also involved in some of the things, just not in real estate, isn't he?
Yeah, but David doesn't do any development in the city.
David's a turkey guy.
Okay, well, he's also bought the 8th Street,
Right.
and that's in the city.
But he's not a developer in the city, no.
Okay, all right. Okay, so.
I would also say.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
If I may this is my first time being here with you guys, but under inclusionary zoning, I mean, according to what HUD and everything you look at, the successful ones, they're looking at a strong housing market. So if you're looking at a strong housing market and strong political support are two key factors of a successful IZ, for short term, but that's what we need to look at. So if we're talking strong housing market, we have to look at, I mean, you're talking real estate agents, you're talking, so do we really want to get that involved with developers and everything else until I mean, what are we trying to do with this ordinance? Is this just strictly for a political aspect of it? Or are we really looking to develop a strong housing market?
I would argue that essentially what inclusionary zoning does is it forces developers to include below market units as part of the market rate units that they develop, or high-end market that they're developing. So you can only go so far with that before you kill the deals. And if you kill the deals, that might be okay in the market where you don't want any more deals done. Or you could be, basically hamstrung by the developer saying, you'll never see another unit developed here if you make this that expensive. I mean, we've got to consider the market realities of what we're trying to affect, right? I mean, essentially what we're trying to do is manipulate the market to make it work for people for whom the market never seems to work, right? And so, but you can only do that to the extent that it doesn't destroy it doesn't throw the proverbial baby out with the bathwater. So that's why I'm arguing that if the developer said, if we try to lay too much on the developer and the developer goes away, we've got a very different problem, right? And in this case, we've got a single developer doing all this work down here. So I know I'm gonna sound like I'm pro JB here. I am in many respects. I think the guy's done extraordinary work. But if we don't recognize the market forces, we could end up with a bigger problem than the one we're trying to solve. So that's the reason why I was suggesting JB or some developer be here and help us understand, at what point have we gone too far?
I think you need a real estate agent as well, because if we're developing a strong housing market, we have to look at the holistic view of the housing market. I mean, JB is definitely a developer, but when we're talking the housing stock and the age of our housing stock and the housing market in total, it's a total package.
But an inclusionary zoning policy, what that does is it says if you're going to develop any more housing, X percentage of that housing has to be, a different kind of market.
Exactly.
Right? So we're talking about adding to the market, and how do we make sure that as we add, we don't just add for the well-to-do, we add for the not so well-to-do. right? So that's why, you know, a realtor takes what the market's got and he moves it to the best of his or her ability. A realtor doesn't really have anything in this, especially since we're talking about rentals. It's the developer that we've got to deal with. Now, we can wait until the end and go to the developers and say, okay, is this gonna chase you all out of the market?
And that's what I'm afraid of, quite frankly. I don't want to go out and try to develop an ordinance, pass an ordinance, without having developers give us an indication if they're gonna continue. Or they might say, hey, look, you go ahead and do whatever you want to, you inclusionary zoning, I go to Bethlehem or Easton or someplace else and Lower McCoy and develop there and make the money. We gotta be very careful on this. We cannot just put this thing down the throat of developers without having a consensus of what they really want.
Especially when you understand that the impact, first of all, you know, what ANIZDA said, you know, I originally proposed this when I was still on the board of ANIZDA, was that they embraced the plan that was done for the downtown that said, after we get, I think it was 1,000 new market rate housing units,
1,500.
Then, how much was it?
1,500.
Then we should consider those kinds of tricks, right?
There were 300.
And we're just about there. So, you know, he could say, I'm done, and that might be okay, it might not.
Well, I don't think it will be okay. I think we kill the momentum that we have, we're gonna shoot ourselves in the foot. So we gotta be very careful. I don't wanna precipitate things that, you know, may be hurting the city for gaining something that may be, you know, that we're trying to do. And I think it's right to do it, but we gotta be at the right time and we have to do it the right way. Any comments? If not, then I would, have anybody really read and understand the draft that CC provided to us? There are other drafts and there are other things that we can do. This is only a draft, okay? And it's like CC indicated to me, it's a very rough draft.
It's a very, I don't write ordinances for a living, so it's a very rough draft. Yeah.
So what I'd like to do is, if we want to continue just looking at inclusionary zoning, we want to make sure that we look at this, read it, understand it. If we don't understand it, look at, you know, ask for information from other people, and probably don't be too hasty into saying yes or nay on something. What I like to do is make sure that we understand paragraph by paragraph, because it has a lot of me. When I read it, I was thinking, there's no way we can do this part. And then I also said, this is pretty good, you know, in some of it. But I mean, there are things here that I say, if we present these to any developer, they're gonna say, go pound, die someplace, you know, I'm out of here. So, we gotta be careful, okay? I don't wanna just pass a legislation just to say, politically, we passed the legislation. I wanna make sure that it does good for the future of the housing stock, for the future of the lower income individuals in the city, and for the future of the city in general. But at the same time, developers are in the business of making money. But they also are, I mean, many of them want to help our city, and many of them are conscious, you know, enough to want to help lower and moderate income individuals. At least I would say lower income individuals primarily. And when you look at our housing stocks, I mean, I just heard the mayor or read an article about $2.4 million that had never been brought to the city, to city council. I don't know if it was brought to you, Mr. President.
It was brought to you last week.
No.
Yeah, you voted for it.
No, we didn't vote for that.
Oh, you didn't vote for 2.4 million, is that what you're saying?
We voted for 600,000, wasn't it? And whatever we're gonna give to CACLV. We didn't vote for 2.4 million.
I don't know what that number means. That might include Sacred Heart and all the other stuff going on. Is that what it meant?
That Julio was about 3 years ago at his State of the Union, the State of the City breakfast at Muhlenberg College. He announced that he was making $2.4 million available from a variety of city sources. This is the money finally finding its way there. You're probably right, you didn't vote for that. But that's,
well, I'm not right on that one.
That's its origin.
So, it wasn't brought to us in that way. It was brought to us, we're gonna get some money, $600,000 to do this, we're gonna do it to CSLV, we're gonna do it in the Jordan Heights area. That's how it was brought up to us, right? My fellow council members are here, and so are you. So I never heard until I read in the paper, we have $2.4 million that we're gonna develop here, housing development, or do facade grants. In fact, it was brought to us as it was in the paper as a facade grant, and also giving people, an opportunity, is what I read, that own a building to fix the inside of the building. Now, when I'm looking at people who own buildings here, who are from New York or from South Carolina or Florida, I don't think that's, I don't think we have vetted those people to make sure that we want to do their facade and assume that they're going to do the inside of the building, the interior of the building.
Well, I'd be happy to, if you want to get into this, I'd be happy to explain all this stuff.
Well, I don't want to explain that now,
Yeah,
because
maybe
I want to deal with this. But I'm just saying that what I read in the paper may be different than what we voted on.
Yeah, well, because what was the contract for CACLG? It was like 140,000?
Right.
That 140,000 is not to develop, it's to administer the project.
Right.
That 2 million is what we would administer, right?
I don't know.
I thought
No,
you
I'm
were
saying
administering
that's
600,000.
That's what we're talking about, 600,000.
600,000 last week.
But you don't know, the mayor might have talked to you about it, but he certainly didn't talk to us in council. Or he might have talked to somebody, but I never heard it until I read it in the paper. And believe me, I asked some people in the city who work for the city, and they haven't heard it either.
I didn't write that.
No,
I never wrote.
No, it wasn't you.
I think it was.
It wasn't you. I think it was Matt Assad.
So to
I
get
think
back
it's
to
on
inclusionary
WFX.
zoning, can we get back to inclusionary, because you guys have a meeting at 6, and I'm just keep looking at that
Yes.
clock, so.
Let's go back
Okay.
into it, but we can talk about that later, I mean, if you guys do. Let's go.